Please welcome with me a freshman congressman to the Congressional District 21, my congressional district, after a gentleman who served for over 28 years in the Congress. A tough fought race, starting with 17 candidates, whittling down to what I believe became the best candidate and the most ardent pro-life warrior and advocate elected to Congress. Please welcome me, Mr. Chip Roy.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is a great blessing to be here. I can't thank Patrick enough for organizing this, and all of you all for showing up here today. I want to thank Will for that great prayer. I want to thank Karen and Monica for registering voters. I want to thank all of you who are out here today demonstrating why we are going to be victorious and standing up for life. That's why, because you all are here. It is extremely inspirational to be standing here in this quad here under the American flag and the Texas flag, but also sitting here standing before the cross of Jesus, because that is the ultimate hope that we all have, and that is why we know we will ultimately be victorious. So thank you all for being here. Marks 47 years, we know, since Roe versus Wade, and this nationwide policy of abortion on demand was created not by Congress. It was created by an activist Supreme Court. And it's the result now, the result that we have today is a tale of two stories. And the first story is a story of death and despair. It's the story of 60 million lives lost. 60 million lives lost since 1973. People say we have a demographics problem in this country, and that's not true. We have a culture problem. In the United Nations 2013 report, only 9 countries in the world have a higher reported abortion rate than the United States. Let that sink in. As we are about to celebrate Martin Luther King on Monday, and what did he say? That we want to be able to celebrate the content of one's character, not the color of their skin. And yet, the color of your skin or your economic circumstances of your parents are now too often deciding whether or not you live or die before you're even given the first breath of life. And that should not be the case. Planned Parenthood masquerades as a women's health organization, but begs for $500 million while they're going to unload $45 million to elect candidates to go give them another $500 million so that they can peddle their death of the unborn in the name of women's health. It's a disgusting and cynical treatment of life, which I saw personally as the first Assistant Attorney General. When we saw what happens inside of Planned Parenthood clinics, don't let them fool you. We know what happens inside those clinics. We've seen it now on video. We've seen now what occurs. And I'm not going to talk about it here because we have families and we have children here. But you know it. You've seen it. And we should stand up against it, and we should not have taxpayer dollars going to fund that dreaded organization. It is noteworthy that abortion reached its apex in this country at 1.6 million lives lost in the year 1990, which is the year I graduated from high school. But now I want to talk about the story that is the story of life and hope, because of people like you helping more Americans say no to abortion. Because of you, that number has been going down steadily over the last 30-odd years. Now we're looking at about 800,000 abortions a year, which is tragic. But it's half the number we saw in 1990 because you all are out there working hard and making changes and making people understand that there's a choice. Because of you, there are more resources and options for young women facing the fear of unplanned pregnancy. Because of you, people like the couple in 1996 who chose life, they went in for a regular prenatal checkup and they were excited. They'd been told they had twins. The sonogram came back and they were told they might have cystic fibrosis in one of the twins. After another test, they were told the doctor recommended termination, abortion, as the, quote, compassionate option. The couple said no, and they walked out. They chose life, and the boys, Manfred and Jonah, were born healthy. Manfred is now the head of the Young Conservatives of Texans, and Jonah now works in my office in Washington, D.C., because they stood up for life. Because of you, and because of your work, we now have leaders in Washington who are fighting for life, who are putting in place judges who respect the Constitution. Yes. The President of the United States, President Trump, has appointed almost 200 strong conservative constitutionalist judges. The President is making important rules changes. The President recently forced Planned Parenthood to forfeit $60 million in federal funding for refusing to comply with the regulation issued by HHS that will prohibit family planning clinics that receive funding under Title X from providing privately funded abortions. That was an enormous change in law because of this President and his administration and your support. And Republicans in Congress are fighting for life. And I might say, unlike some politicians who shall not be named here today, that may or may not be running against me, who chose to spend her political capital filibustering in the Texas Senate for third trimester abortion. Instead, one of my first acts in Congress was a letter asking the President to veto any legislation that weakens current federal pro-life policy, and the President did just that. We're sponsoring life legislation every day, notably legislation to defund Planned Parenthood. And the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act with 191 co-sponsors, including 188 Republicans, which we have tried to bring to the floor of the United States House 80 times, only to have Speaker Pelosi deny us a vote on the simple idea that life, while we know life begins at conception, even the most basic standard of decency should allow us to agree that an infant born alive during a failed abortion should be saved. Yes. Yeah. President Reagan once famously said, "I've noticed that everybody that is for abortion has already been born." That is a true statement, whether or not you wear pink shoes in the Texas Senate or not. Which brings me to why this is personal for all of us, and particularly for me and my wife, Kara. My dear friend was pregnant 5 years ago this month when I received a call. She asked me to be the baby's godfather, and I was overjoyed. But there was a weird sound in her voice. Something was wrong in the scan of the baby's brain, showing a potential devastating issue. She had a monthly checkup with her OBGYN the following week. Her husband had to work, but she took their 2 boys with her. They liked going to hear the baby's heartbeat, and it was supposed to be a quick checkup. She went in expecting her doctor would reassure her and answer more questions. The doctor, a woman, silently reviewed the file, didn't say anything, and then looked her straight in the eye and asked her if she wanted to terminate her pregnancy. She called us right after that appointment, angry and terrified. Terminate? She explained that the doctor had asked her the question in the same tone she might have used when ordering coffee at Starbucks. She didn't blink an eye. She asked it in front of her 2 little boys. She asked without her husband there. She offered no explanation or comfort. It was cold. The doctor told her she had to decide quickly because she was approaching 22 weeks. Our friend's response was such a source of pride for us. She said she almost laughed and then politely responded that termination was not an option and walked out and never returned. We all realized that God put our friend in this position for a reason. She has a strong faith. She knew she could handle it because God was with her. She told us that the baby would know love and would feel love. Facing her fear of the unknown with faith and love strengthened her as a mother and a woman. But what if it hadn't been our friend? What if another woman listened to that doctor who made it feel so easy and acceptable to just, quote, terminate and try again for a better outcome? In a world where everything and everyone seems to be so sensitive, we have completely desensitized abortion. We use politically correct words. One is pro-choice. The pregnancy is terminated because no one wants to say that she killed her baby. But if you are ending an innocent life on purpose, we're not sure what other way to put it. So how did it all turn out? Her ultrasound was completely normal at 24 weeks. They just couldn't get a good read at the 20-week appointment. Her baby was born in May of 2015, is completely healthy. It was a boy, by the way. None of us, but particularly his loving and courageous mother, can imagine life without him. I was just out hitting golf balls with him last week in Northern Virginia when I went to go visit him and his family. This march today, the marches we will have this week, the march in Washington next Friday, it is to celebrate life. And all are welcome in that march, including and especially the unborn and those who love them. Choose life. Life is not perfect, but each life is perfect. Thank you all. God bless America.
I want to hand it to Chip Roy. Not only is he a cancer survivor, but he is also someone who knows the inestimable value of human life. And when he was running for office and we had a long visit at our office, and I asked him, I said, will you ever sponsor a piece of legislation that includes an exception for rape and for abortion, for rape and incest, for children that are conceived in rape and incest? And he answered unequivocally, no. So I want to applaud him for that. He was the most candid person I've visited with in a very long time in asking that question. Would you ever sponsor a piece of legislation that included an exception to abort a baby conceived by rape or incest? And he answered quickly, unequivocally, no. So let us take that and ask another question when you do that, because in many times in negotiation to get a bill passed, whether it be the state or Congress, concessions are made early on, like exceptions for rape and incest. Let us ask our candidates and our elected officials if they will ever do that. So thank you very much, Congressman Chip Roy, for being here. We missed you last year in front of the Alamo, but we're certainly glad you're here this year. And thank you for making it possible. And where's your staff here today over here? Thank you for y'all being here. And if your phone call earlier today, make sure that he got here safely.